Hello, welcome back to Let's Raid / How to Hunter raiding guides. Okay, so this time we're on Yorsahj Heroic. This is for hunters. It's quite a fun fight. I think there's a lot of movement, lots of things that we can bring to a fight such as this, which is good, and it's not too stressful. I think the last fight we saw was on Oz. There's a lot of kind of difficult target switching, a lot of different things we have to do. I don't particularly like that fight. Maybe once I've done it a few more times I'll enjoy it. Yorsahj on the other hand is okay, because there's a big difference we can make. So let's just cover how it differs between the different versions of the fight. In looking for raid and normal mode, you'll get 3 of these globules coming in from the outside. In heroic mode you get 4. You can still only take 1 down. You don't really have... I'm not sure whether it's possible to take 2 down if you've got ridiculous DPS. I don't think so, but anyway, at the minute with current gear you don't have time to do that. You've only really got time to get 1 down. So he will absorb 3 globules, so he's going to take on 3 ridiculously overpowered abilities. As you've just seen there, we've had blue, dark, and I forget what the other one was. It's still on the screen. Oh, it's gone. But anyway, for our raid setup, we mainly concentrated on just taking 2 colours down, either yellow or green. I think there's a special condition where we'll take another down, but for the most part that's all we were focusing on. That seemed to work well for us. And yeah, the only couple of things really in our tactics that maybe differ from how a lot of people are doing it is how we focused on the mana orb. So if we got a mana orb, and as you see there, we had that from the last phase, we left that up. We were able to get our healers and spellcasters enough mana to basically so that they could regenerate their own and just deal with it. If we were to get another mana orb down, what we would do is immediately kill that straight away, and that would immediately, because you can have more than 1 mana orb up at once, that would allow our spellcasters and healers to get their mana back immediately, and then we would again leave the new mana orb up and save it for when we had another mana orb spawn. The only other case when we would use that mana orb is in the current phase we've got there is purple, black, red and yellow. That apparently for healers is just absolutely insane. So by taking the mana orb down when the globule is absorbed by Yorsahj, that would allow the healers and the spellcasters to get full mana back and heal through it. Okay, so that's how we do it. I mean, there's loads of guides that will deal with the general raid composition and how to tackle this as a raid. I'm not here to cover that. I'm here to cover how, as a hunter, you can be most effective. So let's go over and cover that first off, and then I'll tell you a little bit on how to increase and maximise your DPS. So first off, we've seen on a dark phase, I think this is where we really bring most of our benefits to a raid. It's just the absolutely insane DPS that we can bring. So ideally you want to be raiding as a survival here, especially if it's a 10-man group. You want to be survival for that kind of massive burst AoE damage that we can bring. I guess if it's 25 mode you could probably get away with marksman. Marksman DPS got a little bit of a buff in 4.3.2, especially on the AoE side, so that might be quite useful. I don't think it's still going to be quite as high as survival. Beastmaster just doesn't really cut it for AoE, really. I mean, it's just not, just doesn't compare. So on the dark phase, you will get a lot of additional ads coming up. Save your black arrow and fire traps for when they spawn and they're on you, and where you're stacked up on. Pop one of those down. You've got no range limitation on the boss, so you can stack right on the boss to get the benefit of AoE healing, and you can still damage him. So you'll see what's going to happen here. We'll wait for the ads to spawn. We've got a healing rain down in the centre. If the damage is getting too much, because we're stacked right on the boss, we can use our Raptor Strike. to mitigate 20% of that incoming damage. Right, so I've put my explosive trap down, and now I can just continue to use my multi-shot. My multi-shot, even targeting the boss, will hit all of those other adds, and it's just ridiculous DPS, and they're down. So that's fantastic. Okay, so on this particular phase we've got a double phase, so we're going to actually get double cast of everything, so we get another set of adds. Our explosive trap should be off cooldown. We won't have time to burst everything down, but do as much initial damage as we can, and then we'll just leave them whilst we get the next globule down. It's pretty intense fighting going on here. So with the globule, what can you really say about that? Okay, so with the globule, don't go too far out. I mean, if you can walk a little bit and then do a disengage, that's probably enough for you to get that initial range on the globule, even before it starts moving. As soon as you can, as soon as you're in range of that globule, put a hunter's mark on it and just burn it down as fast as you can. Okay, so that's really all there is to it from a hunter's perspective. It really is a simple fight. I don't envy the healers on this fight at all. It looks absolutely horrible. So let's talk about maximising DPS. What can we do to maximise DPS here? So number one, it's the same as Zonoz. You've got to, if you're using your pet in its default stance, it's going to, after a couple of seconds, go to whatever you're targeting on. That's not great for these globules. You're going to be a lot of downtime on your pet there. So just keep him on the boss the whole time. He's there as a bit of a backup. So if you're struggling on the DPS of a globule, you can call your pet out to it, but for the most part you don't need to. What I would say, again, as a survival hunter, what I try to keep my black arrow on the boss, primarily because it's going to be more effective on the boss. The globule is usually DPS before all the ticks. Black arrow have run out. And if you're using a similar tactic to us to saving your mana void, one of the things you can do is just to put a bit of DPS on it in between phases. Serpent Sting. I mean, you could even use that as your target for black arrow if you want. But when it comes to getting it down, you can just get a couple of kill shots on that straight away, and that should be enough, especially if you've got it glyphed. The rest of the tips are really just like common sense for hunters in 4.3.2. Hunter's Mark essentially got a stealth buff through the aspect of the Hawk buff, and because of that, and in survival you can't get anything to put Hunter's Mark on for you, so you're going to need to be putting that on the globules and the boss each time. And also it's not worth swapping to aspect of the Fox to try and DPS the globules as they're moving. Just generate a bit of focus with a tier 13 2-piece, and then do an arcane shot, and then repeat. And whilst you're doing an arcane shot, obviously you can be moving. So try and be always firing, always generating focus, and you should come out on top of the DPS charts. Okay, that's Yorsahj down. Again, we struggled a little bit on this fight. It was figuring out the globule priorities is difficult, but once you get through that, it's all a DPS and healing race, so you should be fine. Okay, next up for us is the next boss we've done is actually Ultraxion, so I'll get the guide up for that next, and then we're going to be looking at Hagara. Okay, see you next time.